I'm Stephen King. I'm a professor of emerging technologies, and today we're going to talk about augmented reality, mixed reality, and how we tell stories with these new emerging technologies. But first, we need to know what the different technologies mean and what they are. There are lots of different uses of augmented reality. Most of the time today, you're seeing augmented reality displayed through a mobile tablet or mobile phone. And so you put the phone up and you see a contextual information that is added to the scene. Now, the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality is what you're seeing around the content. So in augmented reality, it is where we add computer generated content on top of the regular world that we see. We either do that through a camera or we do that through our eyes and with a lens in front of our eyes. So augmented reality takes us and adds contextual information, adds computer graphics and data onto our scene, like a heads-up display you might see in a cockpit of a military aircraft. Virtual reality, in contrast, is taking you to a completely different time and place. You put on a headset where you can't see the real world. You don't see what's around you. And so that is a completely different experience, although they actually use some of the same underlying technology to display and track your head movements, but both of them are very different in the type of content that's being consumed. We often talk about mixed reality. Well, mixed reality is really a deeper version of augmented reality. So most of the time, mixed reality means I can interact with those 3D objects. It's not just contextual information added to it, but it's something that I can see. And typically it's done with a mixed reality headset like this one, the HoloLens from Microsoft. This is the first generation. There's a second generation out. And so I can see and interact with you. You can see my face. We can talk, but I could also get contextual information like who you are, who you work for, what's your job title. I can use gestures to get that information. So as we talk about the difference between mixed reality and what a virtual reality headset provides, there's kind of this spectrum of how deep we are into that environment. So the real environment versus the fully virtual environment, and augmented reality kind of falls in the middle. And what I would say is being called mixed reality today is being able to interact with those objects that are added to our existing world. Let's take a look at a brief history of how we got here. A lot of the things we think of in augmented reality came from the movies. So if we think about in 1984 when Terminator came out, Terminator comes onto the scene and he sees a heads-up display. He sees contextual information that's delivered. This is one of the first times we see this in science fiction movies, but we also see this in a lot more. So Iron Man is very popular. So there's an artificial intelligence agent called Jarvis who works and helps him, and he gets a heads-up display inside the Iron Man mask to display what he needs to see for the information for whatever task he's doing. And so this is a nice, beautiful graphical presentation, but let me show you what we have kind of in present day. So in 2009, you had the heads-up display in a cockpit. And so you can see it has some of the same data points that are being presented on the dashboard, but they are presented in a lens that is over the pilot's eye. And so you see this on military aircraft now, and it's even available on a lot of commercial planes. But this has continued to grow and change where it's not just in the military, just in scientific applications, but there's all these other applications as well. So early 1990s, that was kind of where it was. NASA started using heads-up displays. And then once the ability to put these small sensors inside of cell phones came available and affordable, then you had these gyroscopes or these accelerometers that were able to track the movement of the phone. And so then we were able to add the graphics plus tracking the movement and to give you that extra level of interactivity. And so you started to see a lot more of that. Back in 2008, I started testing one where we were holding the newspaper up to a webcam of our computer and seeing a 3D model come out. So that's the early days of augmented reality. And it didn't really take off because who really wants to hold a newspaper up to a webcam and see something come out? But the early technology started, and then you really had this kind of really coming of age where Google Glass came out. Even though it was a failed product, and we'll talk about that one in a minute, it really did set the stage for what could augmented reality do. And then ultimately, Pokemon Go became the big breakout hit that the majority of people actually had their first encounter with augmented reality. Now, as I said, augmented reality and virtual reality have very similar technology. They have very similar technological origins. So here we have a head-mounted display, so being able to see things right in front of your head, and then also a head tracking display of being able to track my head's movement and where I'm looking. And just so you know, I'm not making it up. This is from an Australian professor this is one of his slides from his mixed reality course, where he talks about the great work that UNC has done through the late 60s and into the 80s and even present day of really defining the future of what the technology was needed to provide augmented reality displays. In the early 2000s, you had a lot of work from Google and Apple and a lot of others who were putting in several different patent applications, and so we started to see that. But it really wasn't until the great famous Pokemon Go came out that we really got somewhere with this. And so I want to talk to you about Pokemon Go and a little bit of the details of that. So if you think about this game, this was a very simple game, right? It was I have my camera on, I'm able to see these little Pokemons move around. It's geolocated, so I can actually go from place to place and find these things, but it superimposes those graphics onto the real world using my camera. And this is the most popular augmented reality game or experience that has ever been delivered. During its peak, 147 million active users. So in 2016, it was bigger than Facebook as far as time and consumption, and it had a huge following, and they were making millions of dollars off of people doing in-game purchases. So it was really growing, and I'll tell you, even today, it is still a very popular game. They have 55 million monthly active users, and they're expected to make over almost $900 million in 2019 in in-game spending. So it's still popular. Even though you may not play it, it is still a major game and something that people are enjoying augmented reality content. So it has geolocation, it has gamification, and it has the augmented reality presentation of graphics on that display. Google Glass is its own phenomenon, and it's something that we as technologists and futurists want to really study and look at because it had such great potential and some amazing things, and it just didn't quite work out. So let's talk a little bit about Google Glass. Google Glass came out with a lot of promises. It was going to be able to give you the things that you had on your phone right there without you having to look down. And then it also had a camera that could be recording, see what you're seeing, which was a great tool, but also became one of its major downfalls as there were privacy advocates who didn't like that and that you couldn't see that it was recording. And so Google Glass had a lot of people fighting against it. But I just think it was a little too early. And so there's a lot of things that we can look at. First of all, let's look at the launch video that they launched Google Glass with.
Meet me in front of Strand Books at 2. Oh man, really? Hey there, guy. Hey there, little guy. Sweet. Remind me to buy tickets for Monsieur Gano tonight. Where's the music section? Oh, yes, this is it. Is Paul here yet? Huh. Hey, dude, how's it going?
Want to go check out that new place I was telling you about?
Sure.
This truck's really good.
Hey, just a second. Cool.
Good to see you again.
Thanks, man.
Got a new place in Alphabet City.
See you, dude. Whoa, cool. Take a photo of this. Share it to my circles. Oh, I'm running late. Music, stop.
Hi, what's up?
Hey,
Hey.
you want to say something cool?
Yeah, sure. Is that a ukulele?
Yep. Okay, here goes.
That's beautiful.
Now that was the demo video that they put across social media and on YouTube and everywhere else. And then on the actual launch event, they had skydivers skydiving into the event with the glasses on, handing them to the CEO. It was a huge event, and it was something that really the device did not match up to the hype. Because let me show you what the actual device looks like. This is what you see when you try to use Google Glass. It is a 72 pixels, about an inch display, if you think about it, in a current display, and it had very limited color range, and you had to talk to it using voice commands. And so I was giving a demo one time wearing it, and I kept saying, okay, Google, and it just wasn't working. Okay, Glass, it couldn't figure it out. And so it became an issue, and ultimately it ended up dying, and people had nicknames for it and all these things. But some of the things we learned from Google Glass have really impacted where we are today. One of the things is to have that little red light that lets people know that you are recording. So that is really helpful for people to feel a little bit more comfortable with the technology. We also had this term called glass holes. And I hate the term, but it really spoke to how the world perceived how people who wore these acted. And it's very similar to kind of the idea of the earbud. I'm using this for my microphone for this video, but ultimately, like, I have a wireless earbuds that people probably say I spent too much money on, and the same thing about these Google Glass, that basically the only people who would have them had this discretionary income, and they really just didn't like the way they were doing it. It's kind of like the original Bluetooth earpiece in your ear, and people just thought, well, you think you're more important than I am. So not too long after that, other devices come out. So the HoloLens, and now the HoloLens 2 and the Magic Leap, and both of those companies have learned from what Google did with Google Glass, and they are both targeting the enterprise market, the big business market. And by doing that, they're going to get the consumer market accustomed to seeing these out. So imagine your UPS or FedEx drivers coming through and wearing this headset every day, and you see it and you ask him questions about it, and it's no big deal. But once you get accustomed to that, then it's not so difficult to see or get used to someone doing that, right? And so being able to target the enterprise market, which has the ability to afford these $3,000 headsets, has really enabled them to focus and make sure that they get the user experience right before they open to the general public. And so I really do like the HoloLens. We built an app for it that would do facial recognition and display that person's name and who they work for as a little bubble above their head, which was a really neat idea. But ultimately, there's only a few of these headsets out there, and you kind of look weird wearing one to a conference. So it really doesn't play out long term. The Magic Leap is another device that's very similar, targeting more to the gaming market, but the enterprise and gaming market. And the Magic Leap provides contextual information on top of it that you can interact with. And so both of these are what we call mixed reality. But here, why don't you watch the interface of what it looks like in the recording from the device.
Everest conquered, the New Zealander Edmund Hillary got his first mail and congratulatory telegrams from George Lowe, a fellow countryman and expedition colleague. Thus, 35 miles from Kathmandu, capital of Nepal, Hillary and Ten Singh were welcomed and congratulated by their fellow members of the expedition.
So we have all these different types of new realities. We started with virtual reality. Today we're talking about mixed reality and augmented reality. And I want to show you some of the examples of some of the things that we've done with these different forms of reality. For Time Magazine, we went and built 3D models of the Amazon rainforest at the deforestation line. So users would be able to put the Amazon rainforest model right on their table and then be able to walk around that and see it in a different way. And it hopefully has impact on how they view the issues with the Amazon rainforest.
The deforestation of the Amazon could soon reach a tipping point. This part of the forest, like so much of the rest, is under attack, with more and more dead zones being carved out of the wilderness. That will have global repercussions.
For the Washington Post, they created a nice game version of an augmented reality experience to show the Winter Olympics. And it's a really neat and interesting way of interacting with the Olympics and having two different items race across your kitchen counter, for example. And then now we're actually working on another augmented reality experience for them for the next Olympics in Japan. One of my favorites is the Google Translate app. It is such a useful tool, and it has a camera. And so as I'm able to hold this over the imagery, it changes it to Thai, because Thai is one of my favorite languages. But it is a very useful and helpful feature for people to be able to read and see things in different language. You can hold it up to road signs, and it can be really helpful in lots of different countries. Another one that I really like is the Wine Labels app. So, 19 Crimes, they have a wine label app.
Some may call me traitor, others hero, but I call myself Michael Harrington, Fenian brother, and part of the Fremantle Six.
And it really brings this character to life. It's a simple label, simple picture, but that picture has become a storytelling element. And so when we try to tell stories in augmented reality, we want to make sure that we're presenting it in a way that the medium is really good for it. So this is for marketing, and it does a great job at telling a story and engaging people. The Time Magazine project is a great way of showing people things in a different way. And then if we're doing data visualizations and things, we can let people see three-dimensional graphs that may help them to grasp scale or relationships in a unique way. So when I think of mixed reality and augmented reality, I think of them in phone and headset, right? Mixed reality gives me the opportunity to see it in a 3D space and to interact with that and to have more control over that. Augmented reality is typically today used by a phone and lets me see and experience things with extra or contextual information added on top of that. Now that we've learned a little bit about what the difference are between mixed reality and augmented reality, I want us to start making our own augmented reality content. Now we could do this in Unity or Unreal. There's lots of different applications to do it, but one of my favorites for ease of use and just getting right in there and being able to build something with augmented reality very quickly is Zapier, Zap AR. And it has an app with a tool that's really easy to use. And in the next video, we're going to get deep into how can you make your own augmented reality experience.